Todd is a very special guest of ours because he is our next graduate for the Consumer Catador course, which I don't have the book for right now.
Wait.
Show the book. Show the book. There we go. Oh, I thought I was all prepped and then my cat popped on my lap and I just lost all sense of time. But anyway, so Todd, this is his final that you folks were watching and listening to on all of our channels and networks. And Todd, show the bottle that you have. You are going to introduce me as a somebody that's called Corazon Blanco, and I am somebody who just said to you in your environment, whatever, in your bar, your restaurant, in your event area, and so what? And I say to you, what kind of tequilas do you have, and how, tell me about it, because I know it's hot, but I don't know what the deal is with it. So
right.
You're on, man.
Okay. So Tequila Corazon is from Jalisco, Mexico, of course, because all tequilas are made in Mexico. This one actually is different. The NOM is 1103, but this one says crafted and bottled at, which is very different from a lot of tequilas because pretty much Mexican law says you can make tequila anywhere, just put down where it's bottled, which, I have mixed feelings about that, but I don't have any say in it. So
it's a whole other country. Like I mentioned to you somewhere in your interview or yesterday, I said, it's tequila's the highest regulated spirit in the world, and in some cases, it's the most unregulated spirit in the world. So
yeah,
it's not perfect. Yeah,
no, and that's all right.
All right.
So yeah, so for that reason, and also it's also single estate, which I think is pretty cool, because a lot of tequilas are not. So knowing it all comes from one particular place, if you will. Because there's a whole conversation about terroir and spirits, and certainly you can find it. There's that whole conversation about Highland versus Valley tequilas, and so single estate kind of lends itself to that. So there are people who say there isn't, and people say there is, and there is, and
some people prefer to keep it in a certain area, and some people swear by their agave, and usually it's agave growers. That's what they swear by their own agave, and so when Corazon says that, it's because they own several of their own fields, which is nice. So keep going.
Like Tequila Ocho does the whole single estate thing, and there is a difference there. So I think it does lend itself, especially with Corazon also being single estate. Okay, this is going to be different than a lot of the other ones.
Okay, so, yeah. All right. So pour me a glass and tell me about it, will you? Because I'm drinking coffee right now.
They grow in the same area, so it works, right?
Yeah, it's not day drinking until you put a little something in there, right?
Okay. Here we go. Glass of swirl.
Ooh, show it in the camera. So okay, there you go. Yeah. Oh, look at how pretty.
Yeah. Look at that.
Wow, that's really shiny.
It really is. Pretty fantastic. Wow, it's got some nice. First thing I'm getting a hit of is pepper for sure. Some nice green pepper, red, Yes. I'm marking on the wheel.
That's right. Yeah, I made mention in Todd's interview that he's one of the few guys that really made an effort to use the wheel, and it does make a difference, especially when you're scoring.
Especially it helps kind of focus. As I'm smelling through here, I'm like, okay, do I smell gasoline or paint thinner and varnish? And
so when you use that wheel, you're the first thing you look at is to see if there's anything that shouldn't be there. Is that how you've been using the wheel, or do you kind of depends on the expression?
Depends on the expression. Like right now, I do this a lot. I do like a swirl. Well, what's the first thing that hits me? And sometimes it's been like, oh wow, that's like paint and that's varnish. This is not gonna be.
Wow.
I think I've been mentioned on some of my wheels. Like it took me a lot of effort to try to dig down through that first smell.
Yeah.
To find anything else. So it's the first thing I get just by doing this is like gasoline or paint thinner. I'm like, okay, here we go. Take him up for the team.
Don't light a match. Nobody take a pick.
Exactly. And then I kind of go through then I start digging through. I'm like, okay, like for the flowers, what do I smell? What do I smell? And if I do, I'm definitely getting. more rose, I think, than orange blossom on this one.
Okay.
And mark that.
And if you watched our interview with Todd prior to this, you know that Todd has some serious certifications under his belt. And I'm still like in shock that he decided to take our little course because, you know.
Yeah, but I've learned a lot through this course. I
Yeah,
really have.
You and I had some great conversations. We had a great email conversation when he was turning in his homework, and we would like riff off on some, you know, and I'll do that. I'll share my stories, you know, with people, and so we had a lot in common. So it was kind of fun, actually.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I find that the graduates that we do get, and we've had, you're the third one, have been very conscientious. You know, the conversations that we're having are really in depth, and it was fun to see you were still growing your your palate. I mean, you know, SE, was that WSET2? That's some heavy duty stuff, man.
Yeah, it was fun. But you know, I mean, honestly, if anyone ever tells you, "Oh, my palate is fine," they're lying to you, because no one can ever tell you, "Oh yeah, it's perfect." No, not true. There's always more of this. That's why, you know, like actually, as I obviously I still have wines at home, and even some of the whiskeys I have, I still go through, and like I'm always trying to find something. Like what else? In my spice cabinet. No, what the first exercise of going through, love that. Yeah. That was awesome.
Okay.
And visiting that was cool too. So I'm like, oh yeah, it has, because your palate it changes, it develops, it, you know. So yeah, anybody who tells you otherwise, they're full of it.
Well, you know, I can fill you in a little bit on what I know about that brand. I think I've been to the original distillery where they were making it. It was the stablemate for Espolón. And when Campari bought the distillery, it's San Nicolas, Corazon had to move because Corazon belonged to somebody else. And so the gentleman who works with the new distillery, what's the number on that, by the way?
1103.
1103.
Yeah.
That is Casa San Matias, the gentleman who is in charge of Casa San Matias and all their tequilas, and that's David Grapschi. He has a couple of major accounts that he works with exclusively. And he moved that tequila, that brand, to San Matias, and it is probably one of the few times where a move from one distillery to another actually improves the brand. Because most often, I tell people, like you said, don't think that your palate's stable, because things do change, and even brands change. Every time they move it to a distillery, something happens.
Absolutely.
The quality either goes up or down, and most of the time, sadly, it goes down. This is probably one of those cases where it went up. But I'm gonna let you tell me how up it is. I remember the old Corazon.
Okay.
Funny story about Espolón. Espolón, even though they were stablemates, it was $20 less than Corazon. So I would buy Espolón and go, hey, it's the same distillery, right? And they only made two brands. So everybody started going to Espolón, and then when Corazon finally hit the big time, Espolón started to get noticed, you know, and then my treasure bottle, you know, amped up another $20, and I was.
Well, so far I've got, so for flower, I've got rose, some pepper, clove, some banana in there. Couldn't find any olive or almond really.
And that's all in the Blanco, really?
Yeah, yeah. This has actually been really. There's a lot going on in here, which is really cool. Some nice orange, some mint and lemon tea.
Wow.
Now look at the metal section. Like, okay, copper, iron, or brass, or any of these here.
Well, again, you don't want that in there, but if you can smell it, you know.
There's like a little tiny hint of copper, little one, but not much.
You know, if and I'm not exactly sure what it's been years since I've actually had this. I've never had this iteration of Corazon. I've had the old one, and I've been to that distillery, so I know what kind of equipment they had. They may have improved it since then. But this one, I haven't done the research on San Matias inside the distillery to know. I know that for their flagship brand, they use the copper stills, and you know That particular distillery is really close to my heart because it's owned by a woman.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Carmen Villarreal is the owner, and kind of a shocking story of how she got to be the head of the class. Her husband was running the business, and her husband was assassinated. And suddenly, yeah, he had been pretty outspoken about the Mexican quality of tequila, and apparently somebody somewhere didn't care for that. So she was left with the distillery and has made it the powerhouse that it is now.
Wow, good for her.
Yeah, I so admire her and the brands. So when David Grafschi moved Corazon to San Matias, I thought that it's just going to get better. And you're obviously giving it to me. You're telling me what.
Yeah.
So what does it taste like? Have you had?
I haven't gotten there yet.
Okay. All right. Cool.
The one thing I want to mention, the assassination, I think one of the things that was an eye-opener for me too, especially with the thing seminar I was a part of with the woman who owns La Gritona, and realizing like, you always think like, you hear about all the cartels and all the species happening down in Mexico. And actually one place I was bartending at years ago, we got affected when the cartels were intercepting lime shipments.
Oh, so, yeah, I remember that.
That was crazy. Yeah. And so you always think of like, okay, this is happening over here, and tequila's happening over here, and it's immune from all of that. And then you hear about stories like that, and the one from La Gritona, you're like, oh, but it's not. It's still very much affected by all of those social, political ramifications, and people who have vested interest in certain products.
Yeah.
It's easy to
if you follow stuff like that, like we do, you know that the one daughter of a cartel leader who had her own tequila, that tequila 2 or 3 years ago, longer than that, was placed was seized by the Justice Department. It was placed under the Kingpin Act, so you couldn't sell it in the United. And I was living in Texas at the time. I ran into a bottle of it in a major store, and I said, that's illegal now. You can't even sell that, because if you sell it, you're going to jail. It's a federal offense. So
that's crazy.
But yeah, it's crazy with this cartel stuff. So
yeah, it just shows it. It's not this immune little bubble like we'd all like love it to be.
I'll tell you stories off camera. My life was actually saved by a brand owner, but that's a long story. But I'll tell you later. But yeah, go ahead.
So visually, I mean, it looks great visually. It's got some nice legs on it.
Oh, it's gorgeous. I can see the legs on your camera. It's yeah, that's fantastic.
Ooh, just the first hit? I gotta go back in though. Wow. Yeah, that first hit is pretty fantastic. I'm not gonna spit because I got time for to work yet.
All right.
It's the only one I'm doing today, so.
Yeah, in my world, we wind up, the spit bucket is your friend. I say that a lot, and it is. Yeah,
oftentimes I do have like a glass or something beside me, but I forgot to grab one. I'm like, well, I guess I'm just gonna swallow it today. Wow, that's really tasty. There's a nice balance of all of those aromas there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's that almond I said I couldn't quite get is coming through now on that.
Okay.
There's a nice little balance between the almond and the banana, which is really cool. And then full disclosure too, I even when I'm spitting, I do swallow a little bit to get that retronasal.
Yes.
I exhale. So
yeah, I do the same thing. I mean, there's no way to get the retronasal without swallowing a little bit.
Right.
And then it also helps to calculate the finish, because a lot of people want, does it have a finish? Does it not have a finish?
Right. And like the alcohol impact in the mouth, there really isn't there. It's really nice. It's very mellow.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, because I got that question from another student about how they should grade the alcohol. And if you look at the grading sheet, alcohol is an element that you look for, mm-hmm. but because it's missing, it's not a bad thing either. No. As long as it doesn't singe your eyebrows, you're okay.
See, that's what I look at it too. I was looking the same way. Like, okay, the alcohol impact. If I can drink it and I'm not like, then that's good. You know?
Well, and then it's even more important when you want a balanced alcohol hit, because even with higher proofs, Tapatio 110, anything over 80 proof, with an 84 proof, they go up a higher. You want that alcohol to be balanced. It has to be balanced all the way to. I think the biggest one I've had is a Tapatio 110,
Okay.
and even that alcohol is very balanced. It's holding it in your mouth. You have a hard time with, because it really can literally burn the inside of your mouth if you're not careful.
The tequila red cast strength or still strength that I tried for the class was the first time I ever had an overproof tequila, and I was actually very pleased the fact that I could still taste things.
Yep.
I'm like, oh, okay, this is actually cool.
Yeah, I've said this a lot on our tastings, talking to several of the other TJs, the tequila jockeys that we have, our tasters. And I'll say sometimes, it's funny because most of the time I get more flavor when tequila's at below 80 proof or higher. Sure. It's somehow 80 proof. That's a United States thing. Everybody wants to come to the U.S. and by law it has to be 80 proof.
Right.
Or you qualify for a higher proof. But the 36, 38 ABV, there's some really subtle hints of stuff that comes out that you don't get at 80 proof for some reason.
Well, that's why so many whiskey distillers will tell you add a little bit of water to their whiskey to open it up some more. That's a big thing. People, you drink your whiskey neat. No, you don't. Actually, if you really want to taste it, add just a little bit of water. And tequila is much the same way, because I've noticed that too when I've been sipping on tequila. If I have a little bit of ice in there, let it sit. Yep.
Yeah, I've had one master distiller tell me, a drop of water changes the chemistry of tequila. One drop will change it, and of course ice will, putting it in the freezer, that kind of stuff. Sure. So what else are we getting from this Corazon Blanco? Now go get one, man.
Yeah, I'm definitely getting that pepper, which it's just a delicious tequila. I'm not gonna lie. There's a really nice balance between like the herbal notes and like the spices and stuff. It's just a really well balanced. It's delicious. It really is. Yeah, and
I'm jealous. Because I normally have a bottle, with me when I do these, sure. But this was the first time that I selected a tequila that I hadn't had in years, just to see what you would pick out.
So I like the fact too, I can still taste agave, because that's also a thing. That's its own unique flavor. That vegetal note that's in there. I'm picking that up for sure. Because that's actually one of my criticisms of a lot of añejos and extra añejos. Years ago, I actually took a class and we tasted an extra añejo, and everyone in the class thought it was whiskey. Every single person. And the guy's like, no, it's tequila. I was like, oh. And that was my first introduction to extra añejo tequilas. So I was like, well, I guess I don't like extra añejo tequilas then, because I like having that agave spirit, that agave character in there. That's why I'm drinking tequila. If I want whiskey, I'll drink whiskey.
Well, you'd be surprised that was when it was first introduced that way, when Herradura introduced the idea, the concept of resting your tequila and use Jack Daniel's barrels. It was to attract the whiskey palate of the United States, because the United States is geared toward whiskey, either dry finish, the sweetness or the dryness, and the industry, or Herradura, before it was sold to brand form and years ago. And the idea came from a woman, believe it or not.
That's
resting
awesome.
it in Jack Daniel's barrels, and she got it. And it became a hit, with the whiskey crowd. Because that's how it works. Tequila has always borrowed benefits from other categories.
Sure.
Whether if I came to you and I said, okay, look, I'm a vodka drinker. What kind of tequila, or I love gin, but I want to try that. Tequila's a big deal now. What kind of tequila would you recommend for a gin drinker, for instance?
Sure.
You ever get that question?
Actually, not yet. For vodka, I'd say pretty much any diffuser tequila. Just go with it. You've already committed the sin of willfully drinking vodka. Okay. There's only one way.
Path for you.
For gin, actually, almost maybe not tequila ocho, so it might be hit them a little too hard. This one might be a good one, the Corazon. So it's got that nice balance of the sweetness. I mean, this is also got a very clean finish, by the way. It's lingering, but very sweet, but not overly sweet, which I appreciate. Yeah, I mean, this would be a good one. Even tequila rice, because if you're drinking gin, you're appreciating botanicals, you're appreciating extra flavor. And so some of those, I wouldn't see them towards a reposado or even añejo right away. Because if they're drinking gin, they want that cleanness, you know? Yeah.
What's the most common question you get when it concerns tequila? And somebody wants to try something. What how would you steer them to the right?
Yeah.
And
at a wedding center, the most common. Yeah, at the wedding center, I get like, "What's your best shot?" Shut up. That's whole. I mean,
you just
right?
Like that, right?
That's actually a whole separate. Because I was thinking last night, you asked me like as far as like what other parts of the class, like tequila culture. The culture, because in America it's like, oh, tequila is all about the shot, right? No, for God's sakes, no. And it's kind of like, so when people do ask me, like, what's a good tequila? I try to say, I'm like, you want a good sipping tequila? Like, you see their minds like, that's a thing. I'm like, yeah, you can sip on tequila like you would on a whiskey. People they have a hard time processing that. So then I'll start steering them towards, what do I got behind the bar now? Like the Suerte is actually a pretty good sipping tequila. Usually if they're a whiskey drinker, I'll steer them towards a Repo or an Añejo to kind of that introduction, right? It's like, okay, you want a good sipping tequila, let's start you with this Repo or this Añejo and kind of go from there. And I really spend a lot of time trying to talk to guests about tequilas more than just like taking that shot kind of a thing. Because, yeah, that American culture and that is.
I think you mentioned in your interview that you're now the guy in the liquor store in the tequila aisle who's steering people away from.
I am.
Because I'm the same way. I haven't been into a liquor store in a couple of years. Needless to say, because it's not safe anymore. But it's getting safer now. But yeah, I miss that. Because that you see these. There's just this look on people's faces like, he's a tequila drinker and I don't even know where to start. It's like me if I walk into a wine store and I look at these racks of wine, I don't know where to start. I don't know anything about wine except for California. California White Zin. That's it. That's all I know. But and that doesn't make me a wine drinker. So I see the same look on people's faces when they go to like even bigger stores like Total Wine. So you see a lost person there and you feel, oh my God, I want to help this person.
Yeah.
And then the salesperson gets kind of ticked off at you because you know more than he does,
Yeah, I'm stepping on their commission kind of a thing. Yeah. Because it's funny, because I've actually been in some stores where I can see the salesperson steering them towards a certain way. I'm like, look, I know your commission's resting on this, but you're steering towards a shitty tequila. So I'll kind of step in like, this one's also really good.
I think I know what store you're talking about too.
Maybe.
Okay. Anything else you want to say to me about Corazon? Now you tasted it, you've broken it down. Is there anything else that we should know about so I can go get a bottle?
It's a pretty solid tequila. I think it's going to be worth the investment you're going to make on it. Honestly, it's just a good one. Yeah.
By the way, in your area, that was a great price for that.
Yeah. All right.
Wow. That's the reason why I said, okay, well, I'll make an exception this way because I've never been able to get it here in California for that price that I got it for you. So everybody in Colorado, go get this. Show the bottle again. And Corazon Blanco. That is outstanding. Wow.
It is really good. I'm trying to avoid using the word smooth. I actually did a tasting with a liquor rep some time ago, and he said the word smooth is the worst one to use because everyone has these. That's why I actually use it's a mellower flavor.
Yeah.
Not like.
I had one brand owner that said to me, one of my mentors actually said to me, there are two words in the English language that should never be together in the same sentence: smooth and tequila. So he was the first one that turned me on to the word approachable.
Nah, that's a good word for that.
That's a good word for that. Approachable, I think.
Yeah, it's tequila.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that is Todd's final. Todd, you graduate, bro.
Yay!
Congratulations. That was
Hey.
that was awesome. Because now I don't have a bottle. I'm gonna, I have so much tequila and stuff on the floor of my living room that I don't have a reason to go to a liquor store except to go, like it's like going to the bookstore. You just go and browse, right?
Sure, yeah.
And now it's safe to move around the country nowadays, and so I'm gonna go look for a bottle because I am anxious to see. I know what the core line of San Matias tastes like because I've had Pueblo Viejo. I've had Pueblo Viejo is a really rustic, in your
cool.
face, and it's a great. The bottle is iconic and it's been there for years for me. I remember when I couldn't afford to drink anything else, and Pueblo Viejo was always the go-to. After Espolón decided, Corazón decided to just blow up, right?
Yeah.
So again, near and dear to my heart. Todd, thank you so much for being with us, for taking this time to graduate and look for your certificate in the mail coming soon.
That's exciting.
But I so appreciate it. Folks, you have been listening and watching to not sipping off the cup, open bar, forgetting which show I'm on. This gentleman, I'm Mike Morales here in Southern California. That guy out there is
Todd Mayville from Colorado.
Todd is in Colorado, and you have been watching Todd's final. He is now an official consumer catador. So for those of you in Colorado, for those of you watching us, definitely go see his location. Thank you, sir. Pick up the consumer catador course. I do. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And as we like to say on Sipping Off the Cuff, whatever you do, tomar sabiamente, sip wisely.
Indeed.